Jubilees, chapter 8. In the 29th Jubilee, in the first week, in the beginning thereof, Arphaxad took to himself a wife, and her name was Rasue, the daughter of Susan, the daughter of Elam, and she bore him a son in the third year in this week, and he called his name Canaan. And the son grew, and his father taught him writing, and he went to seek for himself a place where he might seize for himself a city. And he found a writing which former generations had carved on the rock. And he read what was thereon, and he transcribed it and sinned owing to it, for it contained the teaching of the watchers, in accordance with which they used to observe the omens of the sun and moon and stars and all the signs of the heavens. And he wrote it down and said nothing regarding it, for he was afraid to speak to Noah about it, lest he should be angry with him on account of it. And in the 30th Jubilee, in the second week, in the first year thereof, he took to himself a wife, and her name was Milcah, the daughter of Madai, the son of Japheth. And in the fourth year he begot a son, and called his name Shelah, for he said, Truly I have been sent. And in the fourth year he was born. And Shelah grew up and took to himself a wife, and her name was Muach, the daughter of Kesed, his father's brother, in the 31st Jubilee, in the fifth week, in the first year thereof. And she bore him a son in the fifth year thereof, and he called his name Eber. And he took to himself a wife, and her name was Azurad, the daughter of Nebrod, in the 32nd Jubilee, in the seventh week, in the third year thereof. And in the sixth year thereof, she bore him a son, and he called his name Peleg. For in the days when he was born, the children of Noah began to divide the earth among themselves. For this reason, he called his name Peleg, and they divided it secretly among themselves and told it to Noah. And it came to pass in the beginning of the 33rd Jubilee that they divided the earth into three parts for Shem and Ham and Japheth, according to the inheritance of each, in the first year, in the first week, when one of us who had been sent was with them. And he called his sons, and they drew near to him, they and their children. And he divided the earth into the lots, which his three sons were to take in possession. And they reached out their hands and took the writing out of the bosom of their father Noah. And there came out on the writing as Shem's lot, the middle of the earth, which he should take as an inheritance for himself and for his sons, for the perpetual generations, from the middle of the mountain of Rapha, from the mouth of the water, from the river Tina. And his portion goes toward the west through the midst of this river. And it extends until it reaches the water of the abysses, out of which this river goes out and pours its waters into the sea, Miat. And this river flows into the great sea. And all that is toward the north is Japheth, and all that is toward the south belongs to Shem. And it extends until it reaches Caroso. This is in the bosom of the tongue which looks toward the south. And his portion extends along the great sea. And it extends in a straight line until it reaches the west of the tongue which looks toward the south. For this sea is called the tongue of the Egyptian sea. And it turns from here toward the south, toward the mouth of the great sea, on the shore of its waters. And it extends to the west, to Afra. And it extends until it reaches the waters of the river Gihon, and to the south of the waters of Gihon, to the banks of this river. And it extends toward the east until it reaches the Garden of Eden, to the south thereof, to the south and from the east of the whole land of Eden, and of the whole east thereof. It turns to the east and proceeds until it reaches the east of the mountain named Rapha, and it descends to the bank of the mouth of the river Tina. This portion came out by lot for Shem and his sons, that they should possess it forever to his generations forevermore. And Noah rejoiced that this portion came out for Shem and for his sons. And he remembered all that he had spoken with his mouth in prophecy. For he had said, Blessed is the Lord God of Shem, and may the Lord dwell in the dwelling of Shem. And he knew that the Garden of Eden is the Holy of Holies, and the dwelling of the Lord, and Mount Sinai, the center of the desert, and Mount Zion, the center of the navel of the earth. These three were created as holy places facing each other. And he blessed the God of gods who had put the word of the Lord into his mouth, and blessed the Lord forevermore. And he knew that a blessed portion and a blessing had come to Shem and his sons to the generations forever, the whole land of Eden, and the whole land of the Red Sea, and the whole land of the east, and India, and on the Red Sea, and the mountains thereof, and all the land of Bashan, and all the land of Lebanon, and the islands of Kaphtor, and all the mountains of Sinir, and Amana, and the mountains of Ashur in the north, and all the land of Elam, Ashur, and Babel, and Susan, and Maedai, and all the mountains of Ararat, and all the region beyond the sea, which is beyond the mountains of Ashur toward the north, a blessed and spacious land, and all that is in it is very good. And for Ham came out the second portion beyond the Gihon toward the south to the right of the garden. And it extends toward the south, and it extends to all mountains of fire, and it extends toward the west to the sea of Atel, and it extends toward the west until it reaches the sea of Mayuk, the sea into which everything which is not destroyed descends, and it goes out toward the north to the limits of Gadir, and it goes out to the coast of the waters of the sea, to the waters of the great sea, until it draws near to the river Gihon, and goes along the river Gihon until it reaches the right of the Garden of Eden. And this is the land which came out from Ham for Ham as the portion which he was to occupy forever for himself and his sons to their generations forever. And for Japheth came out the third portion beyond the river Tina, to the north of the outflow of its waters, and it extends northeastward to the whole region of Gog, and to all the country east thereof, and it extends northward to the north, and it extends to the mountains of Kelt toward the north, and toward the sea of Mayuke, and it goes out to the east of Gadir, as far as the region of the waters of the sea. And it extends until it approaches the west of Farah, and it returns toward Average, and it extends eastward to the waters of the sea of Meoth, and it extends to the region of the river Tina in a northeasterly direction until it approaches the boundary of its waters toward the mountain Rapha, and it turns toward the north. This is the land which came out for Japheth and his sons as the portion of his inheritance, which he should possess for himself and his sons for their generations forever. 5 great islands and a great land in the north, but it is cold, and the land of Ham is hot. And the land of Shem is neither hot nor cold, but it is a blended cold and heat.